is becoming increasingly popular as a recreational activity to go explore caves. As you walk, climb, or squeeze and crawl through tight spaces, a lot of enthusiasts can also zip line or rappel down to different levels. Some even dive underwater. With spelunking, you never know what you'll find around the corner. While being guided by nothing more than a headlamp, you're likely to see very interesting rock formations, underground streams and waterfalls, canyons, and critters such as bats and other wildlife. A lot of cavers only have good things to say about it. The dark and the quiet of the cave helps them to unwind and get away from hectic everyday life. No matter the time of year, the temperature stays relatively the same. Although there are inherent dangers when it comes to caving and spelunking, it's highly discouraged to do it without proper training and equipment. During some cave exploring or spelunking, I really don't know the difference between the two, my family and some friends were in some deep caves. As we were heading out, we found a slit about knee-high in a rock. Getting on your stomach, there was a really tight squeeze you can get into, and it led to a small crawl space with quartz growing on the ceiling, making a beautiful crystal ceiling display. We went in one by one. If you're claustrophobic, this place was your living nightmare. Most times you can feel the ceiling on your back and the floor on your stomach every time you took a breath. We went deep in, and it was just incredible. Like a small world tucked away within solid rock. I made it as deep as we could go in, before the path waned to the left, and it was covered with stalagmites and stalactites. Everyone was having a grand time when we started feeling a trickle of water on our backs. It turns out, it was raining outside, and the way that the crawl space dipped down before flattening out, the whole place was filling with rainwater, pretty damn quick. With the only way for it to drain out back the way we came in. It started trickling before it went into a stream, and it began to pull up. Being the furthest away from the exit, you could only crawl flat on your stomach, with jagged crystals pointing down from the ceiling. I started to panic. Everyone crawled out as fast as they could, and the water just kept coming in. The streams grew larger and larger. We left one at a time as fast as we could, but it wasn't fast enough. I could feel the water coming up to my chin as I crawled behind my brother. Each inch that I took forward was painfully slow. I could feel the walls compress around me. The water was unrelenting, now splashing against my panicked squirms. I got out just as the water was up to my lips. Everyone got out safely. I'm not eager to try that again. Something like that happened to me, except I was by myself. And there was no water. I was with my brother and a friend, and we went to a cave in Arizona. We were deep inside, and I found a small tunnel. It went off to the right of a path that you can crawl through. The tunnel was very narrow. I had to crawl slowly, and you could almost feel the top press down against your back. I told my brother to wait about 15 minutes, and if I didn't come back, to come and get me. So I crawled in about 80 feet, and this tunnel started to branch off to the right. It's getting narrower and narrower. I thought I saw an opening at the end. I get closer with my flashlight, and the opening is not at all as big as I thought it was. So it was time to turn around. I tried, but there was no room. The walls were on both sides of my ribs, and the ceiling was nearly on top of my back. So about 50 feet later, I'm crawling backwards on my chest, which was extremely difficult. There wasn't any room to turn around. But somehow I managed it, and at one point I'm heading back. The tunnel looked different. I branched off to another path, which I didn't see crawling forward. But crawling back, it was visible. I was totally lost and disoriented. I was on my stomach, and it was very cramped. I was getting pretty nervous. So I started to scream to my brother and my friend, but they didn't hear me. I screamed louder and louder, but still I didn't hear them. I crawled on my stomach a little further and tried again, and I hear a very, very faint voice, only they were below me. So I yelled to my brother at the top of my lungs to come and get me. He started crawling and yelling at me. The whole time, I had no idea where he was, and I was just following the sound of his voice. Suddenly, around the bend, I saw a flashlight, very far away. Then I realized I was way off. I was so happy to see him. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have never found my way out. My cousins go caving. One of their favorite stories, they went down to their favorite cave. Well, it started raining outside, and it actually started to flood. And it flooded their only way out. And probably about a 1 meter section was completely submerged. That's a little around 3 feet. They waited for an hour or two in their little underground camping spot, but the water wasn't going down, so they decided to try it. They got to the part where it was completely underwater, and they decided to go through it and hold their breath. They said it was the scariest thing they've ever done, because they thought it was only 1 meter that was submerged. They really didn't know. They couldn't know until they did it, by which time it'd be too late to turn around if there was more. Luckily for them, they were right. I went caving with my dad. He grew up mining uranium till his family mine went belly up. He was pretty used to enclosed spaces and being underground, and I was raised similarly, albeit without the radon gas. On this occasion, I rappelled down into a pit that I couldn't see the bottom of. While I was working my way along one of the largest underwater rivers in North America, I was nearly caught in a flash flood. I slipped into a crevice where the bottom is of today not mapped. It's never been reached or documented by anyone. It was by far the scariest damn thing that ever happened to me. I had to brace myself with my feet, with my back against one wall, and my legs stretched out in front of me, and my arms on either side. It was a pretty good spot to be, but it was roughly 10 feet down. I was on wet, smooth rock, making it even more scary. My headlamp had come unplugged from my battery pack, meaning I only had the light from my dad looking down on me, some 10 feet up. He had to leave to get a rope. I couldn't really go anywhere or attach my lamp because I had to hold myself in position. So I had to stay in that crevice for roughly an hour. But God, it felt so much longer. I thought the fall itself was scary, but it was nothing compared to that. Complete darkness. It was so quiet. I could hear my blood rushing in my ears. I could hear my knees creaking under the pressure. I could also hear every piece of gravel that came loose from the threads of my boots, sliding down the crevice all the way, just fading out. I started seeing lights in little flashes. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed. I couldn't move to check. If I did, I'd probably fall God knows how far. I could hear far more than I ever wanted, while at the same time experiencing the most quiet I've ever felt. And all I could feel was cold rock up against my back and my hands, and presumably what my feet were braced up against. I soon started not being able to tell what was up and down. I started hearing footsteps and seeing movements and shapes in the corner of my eyes. It was utter hell, waiting for my dad to come back with a rope. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. After that occasion, we always bring a good amount of rope with us now, even if we think we don't need it for the cave. I grew up down in the desert, where there's a lot of old abandoned mine shafts. We would go explore mine shafts for fun. There would always be a level of danger. It was common to see old abandoned boxes of dynamite and leftover mining equipment. One time we went in and explored this vertical mine shaft. There was a ladder that worked its way down. The ladder had a platform about every 20 feet and a hatch that would continue to the next level. I was with about 6 people, I believe. We had gone down to the bottom of the mine shaft. I guess it was about 700 feet down at this point, and we got to the point where the shaft was full of water. We all decided to go swimming, which was creepy in its own right, but it was pretty fun. When we were done, we started climbing up, and I looked up and I could see light moving around. I've been realizing that someone else was in the mine shaft with us. I came to one of the hatches, and I just poked my head out. When I looked to my right, I saw a flash of light moving very rapidly toward me. Then the hatch slammed down shut on me. Someone was standing on the hatch, and I couldn't open it. I was finally able to open the hatch about 5 minutes later, and it turned out to be someone that recognized our car. It was a friend of ours that just wanted to mess with us, but that was very terrifying in the moment. I used to be a tour guide at the Cave of the Winds in Colorado. One of our tours We had everyone blow out their lighters and experience the total darkness, or as close as you could get. After only a few moments, you can actually start to hallucinate as your brain tries to make up for the sensory deprivation, which can be disorienting and scary. It did it tons of times. I never got used to it. I took a trip to Iceland with my girlfriend, my 2 friends and their significant others. We had it in our itinerary to stop and check out the lava tube. It was an underground tunnel that the lava used to flow through. This tunnel was completely underground after the first 200 meters or so. It twisted and turned so much that we lost sight of the daylight from the entrance. Pitch black, total darkness. So we started our little hike. The tube was only 2 kilometers from the start to the dead end. It was July, but there was still snow in some of the tunnel that was open to the outside. It was very cool. We came across a few couples who told us that the rock gets treacherous if you didn't have flashlights. We had a few, and we were all fairly athletic. I figured, sure, why not? After about an hour of going up and down the large boulders of this volcanic rock, we got to a large hill in the tunnel. At the top of this hill was a huge boulder, just sitting very precariously at the top. The boulder was tapered off a bit at the back side, so it wasn't bad to get up. But the front side we saw first was flat. Not smooth, just a straight, flat part of the rock. I climbed up because it was a great sport, and I did a Superman pose for a picture, just for a good storytelling piece. While I climb up and get in position, my buddy snaps the picture. After he takes the picture, with the flash obviously, one of the girls noticed something rather odd that was to my left. Everyone shines their flashlight in the area. It was about 6 feet to my left, suspended 10 to 12 feet from the bottom of the cave. It was a rope. It was anchored to the ceiling. It came down out of the anchor to a knot about 4 feet from the ceiling. The knot turned into a loop. The loop had been cut at the bottom. It looked a lot like a noose. It was a yellow nylon rope. It was suspended into the lava tube, about 20-ish feet above the floor of the cave. The strangest part, there was no easy way to get to the roof to anchor it. It was very well done, and it looked like it had been there for a while. It looked like someone was determined to come out and spend their final hours in absolute darkness. We kept going, but it really got to us for the rest of the trip. Well, I hope this doesn't turn you off to caving or exploring. Just make sure to be safe, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Most of the time, cavers and spelunkers loved it, so I hope I didn't scare you too bad, just enough to keep you safe. Thank you all again for listening. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons. Your help is greatly appreciated. Sorry that I missed last week. The week before was pretty rough, but I think I got it under control. Hopefully I'll be able to get right back on schedule.
I'm sorry that I've been ill the last couple of weeks and that it's kept Alice from being able to devote his time and attention to you dear folks. But I'm on the mend, so he's back. Yay!
Hope you guys have a good day, and until next time, this is Dallas, signing off.